Hey guys, I'm Kelly and I'm glad you're joining us today. I'm having some conversations about friendship with some of my friends. I'm here with a couple people. Their family have been a part of our church for a long time. So we've been here in church community for like 5 years together. So I know about you guys, but they don't. So would love for you guys to introduce yourselves real quick and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Tiffany, and I am married to Isaac. We have 7 daughters, and this is one of 7.
My name is Aya, and I'm a junior in high school. Yeah.
Okay, where are you in the line of
I'm
daughters?
second oldest.
Second oldest
Yes.
of 7 daughters.
Yes.
So that was actually the first thing I was going to ask you guys about, because I think that's such an interesting fact about your life. Is there's 8 women in your home.
Yes.
So like, what are the best parts about that and the hardest parts about that?
Okay, well, I would say one of the best is clothing, because these are actually my sister's pants. And I was like, I don't, what should I wear? I was like, Akira, can I wear your pants? So that is pretty great. You can just share everything. It's nice.
So I really love, Aya, that you have like a relationship with your mom, that you can talk about your friendships with her. And I know some of your other sisters I've talked to that there's the same thing. You guys have really great camaraderie in your home, and obviously you're learning things from your mom about how to deal with your friendships. But I know that's not normal in everybody's house, because in some ways it wasn't totally normal in mine. And I've talked to other young people and other moms who that's not happening. Right. So Tiffany, what would you say is some things that you do to create a like home environment where your kids feel like they can tell you about your friendships and actually want to, which is part of it?
I try and ask questions. And even like from the time the older girls were little, I've always said like I wanted our house to be the house that everybody comes to hang out with, not knowing that it was going to be 7 of my own. But I've kind of like had that in my head that I want my girls, whether it's safety as a parent or rather it's just knowing what your kids are doing, whatever it started out to be, that's kind of where it started. Like, hey, I would love for my house to be the house that they hang out. Not that every time it is. But I ask questions when they get home from school, or I get in the car, or they get in the car. I try not to be on my phone or occupied, so that they do know that as soon as they get in the car, if it's like, oh my gosh, it's not like, hey, hold on, kind of thing. So if I'm ever on the phone and the person's talking and it's like serious, I'm like, okay, hey, I got to go get off the phone, and apologizing to them, because I hate when they walk into the house or into the car and I'm on the phone. It just like does something to my heart, because I feel like it's immediately closing the lines of communication. And so I do make it a point to apologize if they are, and they're like, it's cool, whether they have something to say or not, but that's my habit. And then asking questions like, hey, so who's that person? And that starts out in like kindergarten. So, I mean, the first time we take pictures, I'm like, who's that? And so they tell me their names. And so once they start telling stories, I'm like, oh, you're talking about the little girl with it. And they're like, yeah, that's so-and-so. So that I learn the names. And then if their dad comes in, it's always funny, because he'll say that the one name that he knows, he calls every kid in the story that one name. And the girls are like, Dad, seriously, you got to learn these kids' names. Like, she said this like since the beginning of the year. And so just making sure I ask questions and get involved with what they're doing, even if it's them telling a story that I'm like, I feel like I've heard some form of this already, listening now, because I do have older, middles, and littles. I'm like, fast forward version, kind of thing, like get to the part where it was offensive to you, or where, because it's like, you can't sit here all day, babe, and hear this story. And so I feel like I just try and ask questions and engage with them on like where they are. I can say that I would like, and I think about the communication being better with the older girls, like knowing more about what's going on, and not in like a nosy kind of way, but just making sure that I'm not dropping the ball and being the person that they talk to. And not even that I have to be the first or the only, but that the people around me, they trust. So my friends are friends that they trust. So if something comes up and they feel like I need like a barrier before I go to my mom about this, that they can say, I'm going to call this person. And not that they ever have, but that is like when they get a certain age, we do this box. and it's called their purity box. And so it's like all kinds of fun stuff in there. And it's letters from women who are in my life at the time that I trust. And I don't pre-read these letters. I trust that they are women of God and that they're going to encourage my daughter from the same perspective that I would. And so these are women that if for whatever reason you feel like this is some big stuff and I need help on, and I'm fearful, shameful, whatever, to go to my mom, these are the women that I would say, these are the people that I say, hey, go to them first. If you feel like you need to go to someone before me. And so they know that they have their boxes, they have their letters. And again, not that they've ever needed to do it or have done it, but it's something that I'm trying to cultivate.
Yeah. You're trying to give them freedom that
yes,
you don't have to be the only
yes
person they talk
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Which, how does that translate to you, Io? Like all those things that your mom's doing, I know they're really normal in your life, but does that like help you, makes you want to tell her those things? Or does it feel like, Mom, too much, I don't want you to know everything?
I mean, I guess I've never felt like pressured to tell her anything because honestly, like she's thinking these things in her head, but I've never felt where she's like, oh, tell me this, tell me this, tell me this. Like, just like if there's something that I'm like, ooh, this was interesting that happened today, it's just natural to like talk about that. So I've never felt like pressured to tell her like my whole life. Like, like, oh, every single thing that happened today. I've never felt pressured to do that. It's just always been something where it's like, oh, and this happened. Oh, and then this happened. And then she said that. And it's just like, it's just been normal since childhood. So it's just like something that has continued to just be a part of everyday life.
That's neat. I think too, Tiffany, it's encouragement, like hearing you share that to you don't know all that intentions going into it that your mom's doing.
Yeah.
But for like,
I'm a secret.
I know, we were spilling it all. But like other moms to know, like you've been really intentional about that. And it might not, your kids might not be aware of it, but it's creating an environment in which sharing there's a space for sharing, that you are available, you're not on your phone. And those are some really simple steps that I think other moms can do, even if their kids aren't high schoolers yet. I think all of us as parents, we want our kids to be able to talk to us when they're in high school and facing things. But that starts, as you're saying, when they're really little.
It does.
That you're being intentional then.
It definitely does. Even not just phones. I think about friends. When friends are over, like my play dates purposefully stop by a certain time. Having friends over stop at a certain time, because if I start dinner, I don't like to have other people over at my house unless it was planned and they know, because I want them to feel safe. And I don't ever want my kids to walk in our home and feel like something happened and they have to wait to tell me, because that leaves so much room for the enemy and then for them to just like quiet it and it doesn't seem or feel as important. And so I really try and be like, it's only our family that's home when our kids walk in from camp, from, wherever, because it's like, these are big things that's happening in their life. And when we come from like women's retreats and we come home and our house is a mess, or, it's always like, oh, it's this big takeaway. And so I don't want them to feel that way when they walk in the house. And so I really try to like, okay, play date's over now, like I need to start, and get ready for my kids. So
yeah, that's really great. And I think it's a good reminder how important all those little things are. To just create an atmosphere of openness and sharing. And I love too that you're encouraging other women to be involved in your kids' lives and other adults, which I feel like as a kid would be such a neat thing. I didn't really have that as a kid, but just to go, if you don't want to talk to me,
right,
you've got someone else that you can go to. And I think that's a really big gift, and something too that if you're not plugged into a church community or a community of people that do walk with God, that can be hard if you're isolated as a family and don't have a lot of other people and influences in your life. Well, I'm really glad that you guys have joined me today talking about, I think, what's a really important topic and for families to think about. So as we conclude, would love for each one of you guys to share just a word of encouragement to people who are watching, whether that's another teenager watching or a parent or anywhere in between. What would you say to someone?
I would say probably to moms, especially who are, if you're in your 30s, but just moms in general, because obviously when you watch this, you're going to be a mom. But I would say to cultivate friendships that your daughters trust, like around you. So women that you trust, that your daughters can go to, that if any point they feel like they can't come to you, that they can come to your friends. So that's also taking a personal check and thinking about your friends and the advice that they give you, if you would want them to give that same advice to your daughters. So if it's a friendship that needs to be checked, I would say that's probably the first way to check it. Would you want my friend telling my daughter the same information? And if not, that's probably a friend check on your part. So that's what I would say.
That's good.
I would say just with other teenagers trying to have better relationships with their moms and just talking about friendship in general. I would say just it might be hard, but also just knowing that your parents and your mom in general, they're so for you and your like success, and they just want the best for you. So that's one way that I think about it. Like if it's ever something that's harder to talk about, it's just I have to take like a look at myself and like, why don't I want to talk about this? And then also just knowing like there isn't any shame. You might be embarrassed to talk about something, but there's no shame coming from someone who loves you. So just like pushing through that and just talking about it anyways, because it's going to be hard sometimes, but it's so important to have that because sometimes you have friends who are the same age as you who can give great advice, but it's not the same as someone who's older than you and has more experience and just can give you more insight into certain areas of your life. So
that's great. Well, thank you guys so much for being here and sharing some of your life and your relationship with each other and about your friendships with me. I know it's going to encourage a lot of people. So thank you guys for joining us today. And I hope you've been encouraged and challenged, and we'll see you next time.